I'm deeply sorry that you are made to fight for so long. Today we say formally and without equivocation, we are sorry. We failed you when you needed us the most. From the very beginning, we should have stood with you, but instead we forced you to stand against us. Any of us could utter those words to the O'Farrell family, but in fact, they're the words that were issued by Taoiseach Simon Harris to the families of the victims of the Stardust fire earlier this year. And they were welcome words, but they came far too late, of course, for many of those affected. And I think today, this family here can rightfully ask, did those words have any meaning whatsoever? Because we're used to belated apologies for the hostility of the state in the face of victims who have been failed by the agencies of the state. In recent years, we've heard similar words in respect of mother and baby homes, cervical screening failures, those criminalised for their sexuality, the Magdalene women, clerical sex abuse, the Dublin and Monaghan bombings victims. And in each case, Taoiseach told us that they were deeply sorry for their predecessors' roles in obstructing and in delaying the path to truth and justice. And they said that lessons have been learned and that it would never happen again. Minister, the very fact that the O'Farrell family are here today showed that lessons haven't been learned and it is happening again. Because Simon Harris was one of those Justice Ministers in office since both houses of the Oireachtas voted on resolutions calling for the establishment of an independent public inquiry into the death of Shane O'Farrell. He was one of those ministers who has made this brave family fight for longer than they should have had to. He was one of those ministers who has failed the O'Farrell family when they needed this government the most. When he and his colleagues since should have stood with Lucia and Jim and their daughters and grandchildren, they instead have been forced to stand against this government. Anyone that has spent 5 minutes with Lucia O'Farrell will know, first of all, that she is an absolute force of nature, but secondly, they will know that the questions surrounding the death of Shane and the actions of state agencies are so profound that only an independent public inquiry will suffice. Anyone that has spoken to her about the report of the scoping exercise will also quickly acknowledge that it was incomplete and inaccurate in several instances. The facts today, I want to say this, are the very same as they were in 2018 when Fianna Fáil brought forward a motion calling for a public independent inquiry. They're the very same as on the 6th of December 2019, when Micheál Martin wrote this letter to Lucia O'Farrell and told her she could be assured of his continued support for a public inquiry to be set up. That he has since held the office of Taoiseach and failed to act on this pledge says a lot about the integrity, I have to say, of a party that all too often is happy to accuse others of flip-flopping. Because there must be no more delays. It's time to do the right thing. I wanted to welcome the fact that government will not oppose the motion, but I have to say I find tonight incredibly cynical. Minister Brown has just said that his government intend to refer this to the Oireachtas Justice Committee to assist the government in considering the Houghton report. You got the Houghton report last year, 2 years ago perhaps, last year. You published it in November. We actually had to fight in this Dáil to get a Dáil debate on the Houghton report. We had to fight for 2 months before you would agree to actually put it on the agenda. That was in January. So it is now July, and all of a sudden we're going to refer it to the Justice Committee. That is cynical in the absolute extreme. And the intention, of course, was just to nod through a motion. But, Minister, you have put it essentially on the record, saying you have absolutely no intention of adhering to what this motion has said. And I think what that says is that this state, and particularly the two parties that have been in government in this state for over a century, have actually learned nothing. They're not, in fact, sorry for the failings of the predecessors because you are repeating them. You are repeating the mistakes. I commend this motion to the House, and if it goes to a vote, I urge everybody to vote in favour of it because it's the right thing to do. And as I said earlier on, Minister, and I'll repeat this, there is going to be a public inquiry. At some stage, somebody's going to be sitting in your chair. Some Taoiseach is going to be sitting in this there and is going to be looking Lucia O'Farrell in the eye and say, I am sorry that you have had to go through the hell that you have had to go through to get to the truth, and that we'll make sure it never happens again. Well, those words will ring hollow if they come from a Fianna Fáil or a Fine Gael Taoiseach, if tonight you allow this motion to pass and then simply sit in your hands without enacting it. There are people in your department, Minister, who will move heaven and earth to ensure that this public inquiry doesn't happen, or if it does happen, that it's delayed as long as possible. I'm asking you to do what too many of your predecessors have failed. Show some backbone, show some courage, look this family in the eye and say, we're going to finally do right by you. I commend the motion to the House and I urge every single TD to vote in favour of it tomorrow night. Go on,